What's going on, y'all? You already know who it is. It's your main man with the game plan, Corey Giovanny, and we are tapping in with some core conversations. And today we have right size perspective professional Sara without an H Wilder.
That's very important.
Sarah, Sarah. Talk to us. Talk to us. State your name and what you claim.
Well, thank you for having me. I am Sarah without the H Wilder. I'm a clinical social worker, mental health therapist, but specifically recovery and addiction specialist. So I love having conversations about how people can take small things, small changes in their lives and improve their mental health by it.
Hey, I always say mental health matters. Now, today, we are going to talk about some things that is very, very face fronting
Controversial?
that's out there, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Celebrities are doing this. But I think like on the email I sent you, I'm like, this isn't something new.
Yeah.
It's just different, right? But I'm gonna let you go ahead and talk about what you saw, and then we'll go ahead and put a clip of that at the end of the video, and then we're gonna run it. We're just gonna run it.
You're just
So
gonna
go
run it.
ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, no, it's a big conversation and it's a little controversial because there's a lot of different sides of this. But the topic is GLP-1s.
Okay.
And
And for
GLP-1s,
those wait, hold on. For those who don't know what GLP-1 is, if you're under a rock, you know what I'm saying? Tell them exactly what's the common term.
so from like a product market standpoint, this is Ozempic, Mounjaro. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the medication that helps people lose weight, most commonly talked about in I get honestly, it really started trending for my profession probably about 2 to 3 years ago. But
Okay.
it is really booming now, and I get a lot of questions in my practice about it, and when I saw this video, I felt like it was the perfect catalyst to, like, let's break it down as much as we can in a short period of time from a
Yeah. Yeah.
therapeutic perspective.
Yes. Yes. Because a
Yes.
lot of people don't understand. Your body is one thing, but your mind is something else.
Yes,
So go
absolutely.
ahead, give us the mind frame. Talk to us.
So the first thing I educate my clients about with any medication, but GLP-1 specific, like we'll start with any. Like if you're looking at medication management to help with like an anxiety, depression, bipolar, depressive disorder, is that when the brain receives relief, it does not prioritize any more problem or pain. And so when we bring GLP-1s into that conversation, your body now has a supplement to, yes, release weight, you hit your goal weight, you feel good about yourself, but then it also is not registering a whole lot of what's actually changing and becoming a little bit dependent on this medication to do what it's actually supposed to do to begin with. So I tell people this is what partly why when psychiatrists they prescribe a medication, they highly recommend therapy or behavioral therapy with it because when the brain is tuned down from the problem, then
Mm,
you're less likely to pursue understanding of how to prevent the problem. And that's really comes into my wheelhouse. And I know addiction is like a big word and it may not seem like it applies to GLP-1s, but without having to go into a whole nerdy moment, it really does because addiction is the escape of pain. So when we talk
mm,
about, yes, it's painful to be overweight. Yes, it's painful psychologically to not want and feel good about yourself. It co occurs with a lot of anxiety and depression. But when you take one problem and you eliminate it, you're still left with others. And that's not even just a mental health issue, that's a whole health issue. So
right.
your body could lose the weight, but what we're seeing in a lot of GLP-1 clinical trials is that it reduces the body's ability to actually absorb protein, which that's another trendy
Oh
topic
wow.
in itself. So
Yeah.
your muscles start to essentially deteriorate. So if you're not prepared to have some kind of nutritional support, you're also
Okay.
not prepared from a lifestyle perspective of some kind of movement. And I don't mean going to the gym and just getting into an exercise routine. Of course, that is the ideal goal and standard for people who are, coming about mental health and their health journey and change, but it's realistically not sustainable to do all of that at once.
Right.
So
Right.
I see a lot of people, they ask me, my clients are like, well, what do you have what's your opinion about GLP-1s? I think they're great if you're also prepared to do the inner work to prevent the problem from coming back when you're medically not able to stay on that medication anymore.
Right. Now, because I know quite a few people who have taken it and it worked for them because of the life-saving challenges that some people had to take, right?
Mhm.
And I appreciate them for even sharing that with me for those who told me. And with that, it's like I understand. I myself have considered it, and the doctor was like, unfortunately, the way your body and your body and your heart is shaped, not heart, but my heart probably wouldn't be able to take it because you said some key elements in there like proteins and things of that
Mhm.
nature. And but it's if what I'm hearing is correct, it's more mental than it is physical,
Yeah.
right? So the challenges that I probably would have faced, like if I like let's be 100% honest. Like if I'm not going to therapy, but I'm taking this shot and I'm going to work out, God forbid I injure myself doing a workout, I'm possibly to be able to blow back up.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
there's a lot like, let's even though we're talking about GLP-1s, let's take that off the topic of conversation for a moment. I have a lot of integral experience working with people's minds, psychological trauma, complex trauma cases. You cannot change everything all at once. And when you make one big change, it affects every other system in your body, including your brain. So
Mm,
if when we're talking about I'll use myself as the best case study here. The version of me you're seeing now is not the version, that I was always. I've always been a plus size person. I'm considered morbidly obese despite how much weight I have actually naturally lost in my life. I used to be
okay.
400 pounds. And I personally did not choose GLP-1s. They also weren't really talked about when I started my health journey. And I prioritized doing the emotional work with the relationship with food over just going to the gym, over that. Because what I've seen in my profession is that you can't escape trauma in life. You can't escape stress in life. If you work
Right.
on the things that are going to go with you everywhere, which are your emotions and your ability to be flexible, with change. I still don't like change. I just intentionally consent to change before change happens to me in life these days.
Right.
There's plenty of change that could happen to me that's out of my control. And that's generally what I work on with people that you don't really get to see that because of HIPAA. But then you
Hmm.
bring in a GLP-1 and you take that pain away and it solves a problem. But it's also not taking a look at like what happens when a life problem, like, you lose a loved one, you get laid off from work. Your body is naturally going to conserve energy because you're going through a stressful time, and that in itself contradicts the effectiveness of a medication such as a GLP-1. So
Okay. Okay.
learning about how we honestly operate, it doesn't matter what your diagnosis is. Humans, we operate all a little bit differently, but fundamentally generally the same way. Most people I've talked to when I tell them like what I do, they're like, "Oh, I never realized the brain is literally just designed to protect me." And I have to educate them on that so they don't end up doing so much work to try to fix their depression issue or fix their anxiety issue when a lot of and it's tough. You're going to make mistakes, but that information gets completely overlooked honestly just because it's the hard thing to do.
And sometimes the hard thing to do is the right thing to do. I always say focus on your heart. That way, it can be a challenge that you can overcome. I know when I'm like I've been on a weight loss journey for the last all my life. You know what I'm saying? But when you go on a journey, let's just say you're walking right, and you're going up a hill, and the hill has turns, right? You start get familiar with the turns and you start get familiar like, okay, well, there go a pattern that I see. So the edge is getting a little bit thinner. So let me go ahead, walk this route. And I believe weight loss journey is very similar. You know, celebrations will come. And then
Mhm.
you're like, do I want to eat that cake? Or do I want to just, say, I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't want to deprive myself, but also don't want to destroy myself. So I'll
Absolutely.
go ahead and, I'll go ahead, eat a piece of the cake, right? Um,
Absolutely.
exactly, you know what I'm saying? But I don't overdo it. But in order for you to not overdo it, you have to have the ramifications in place. You got to have like the boundaries, right? You have to have like your buddy system, a community, you know what I'm saying? Cuz if somebody see me like, "Corey, you're not supposed to be eating that cake." I'm like, "You're right." But
You're
guess
not supposed
what?
to be saying that to me.
This is true. You know what I'm saying? But some of us, especially like me, I need accountability partners because they know, when an accountability partner, I let them know my goals, my weaknesses.
Mhm.
And with them knowing my weaknesses, they're like, all right, Corey, you know what I'm saying? That's gonna be an extra 20 minutes in the gym. Is it worth it? And sometimes I'll be like, yeah. But then sometimes I'll be like, nah, it's not. You right. So, you know what I'm saying? Let me go ahead and grab some fruit because I'll be like craving something sweet. But I
Yeah.
say, you know what? I'll get some natural sugar instead of some artificial sugar because of the fact that artificial won't be well for my body.
Yeah. You bring up a point that I really kinda wanna just touch on really quick, and it's the quantification of, like, what we eat to how it impacts us. And the supplemental point there is there's really no true way to quantify what stress and emotional stress in just the decision making of a quantifier stressor. Hopefully that's tracking. But and most people think it's the numbers. Most people think, "Oh, I ate too many calories today." And that is important to consider when you're going on a weight loss specific journey. But most people don't realize that the issue with losing weight is the trigger in your brain that emotional stress hijacks because you're
Mm,
criticizing yourself and not actually relieving yourself. Your body will start to defend itself because you mentally put yourself under attack.
right. Wow.
So and that's what I want people like, you don't everyone's got a lot some traumas, right? I
Right.
don't label that for anyone, but when you understand recovery and because it works, it is a thing. I'm also living proof of that I didn't and it was hard, I'm not gonna lie. You don't have to do it the way I did it, but I do highly recommend people learn how to understand the inner dysregulation that we all are capable of causing ourselves. I
Mm,
put myself in stressful moments without my consent all the damn time, okay? And it's we call it anxiety, but it's also anxiety has a purpose for us. And it's also an
mm,
indicator to be like, "Oh, I'm causing dysregulation in my digestive system just by allowing myself to anticipate worst case scenario of, oh, I have to be on the Stairmaster for an extra 5 minutes because I wanted to enjoy a cupcake right now." That hasn't even
right.
happened yet, and you're already oh, not just you, but you were already
Yeah.
putting ourselves in consequence versus the moment, and at this point and the word mindfulness is kind of overplayed, but it needs to be practiced as a skill to understand that you unfortunately, we are all our own oppressor in some ways if you do not understand emotional reactions and attachments to the
Mm.
things that we all like, you don't even need a bully. We've already become it.
Bullied ourselves. Yeah, we put ourselves in that um what I would say, we put ourselves in that mode of like beating ourselves down,
Yeah, because we think
saying,
that's motivation and it's self-accountability. No, that's
yeah,
self-criticism, not self-compassion. And then I have a lot of people who are like, "Oh, you can't be compassionate for everyone." You can, but you also have to learn boundaries. You can't be
boundaries.
compassionate, right? And we can't even go into the full conversation of what all these intricate parts are unless you do take my program and my course because I lay it out like that. And this is stuff that we don't to be honest with you, some therapists are not trained in. I figured a lot of this out for myself. I took some formal trainings about, binge eating disorder and disordered eating. But I was also lived experience of that. And so I put together more my coaching program is what I teach people in therapy for complex trauma and co-occurring opiate use disorders. It's the same information I would tell and teach someone who struggles with an eating disorder,
Mm,
but it takes time, and it takes you taking the time to understand yourself and how we operate as human beings than just taking the medication first and trying to do that work later. Because I promise you,
got
your
it.
brain we don't change in pleasure, we change in pain. And I don't want
Yeah.
to put someone in more pain than they need to be, but you also have to learn how to manage pain, and that is mostly a psychological conversation than it is a medical one.
True indeed. I always say growing pains is real. Sometimes you grow in your body, sometimes you grow in your brain, sometimes you grow through pain, but one way or the other, growing pains is a real thing.
Absolutely.
And
I've experienced those too.
you spoke about your programming. Give us a little detail to those who say, you know what, this seems like something that I want to be able to invest in, or I want to look more into. Go ahead and map it out for us, and then also tell us the where.
Okay. So, yeah, I have put together a program called Fresh Perspective, which it is a kind of how I would describe it is almost like an inverted form of therapy. It's designed to supplement and complement the traditional style of therapy, which is talk therapy, but to really focus back on yourself outside because the work that the therapists need you to do is out in your life, not in the
Yeah.
rooms. So this program is more of like a self-reflection. I my little elevator pitches, it's the relationship with you through the relationship with food. Most people's primary emotional attachments in childhood tend to center around food. And then we look at when stress comes in, food is the one thing that most people either restrict or they overuse as a
Oh,
coping
wow.
skill. So I've put out at for it's 15 core sessions, but it's designed to be introductory to this topic, but then also repeated for maintenance because the information never changes. It's the outside world that life throws a new stressor at you, but how you regulate and cope with stress doesn't change. So repetition is how that is, and it's all virtual, so it can be ac- accessed from anywhere in the world, ultimately, as long as we stay online and the grid is up. But it's also something that I think, especially for women, I do think there's an emotional attachment that needs to be considered. But I have had men go through it and they relate to it, especially if for men, you've known that that is a coping skill for them. If you don't wanna talk as much about the emotions, I'm launching a new program this weekend, actually. It's the live version and it's just the skills. Take the relationship of food out, and it's a skills-based, therapeutic, trauma-informed workshop where you deepen those skills outside of therapy, and it's a therapeutic community that I'm building right now in North Carolina. But I will have live stream access for people if you wanna tune in and you can't physically be here in North Carolina, and that's called the
That's
self-care workshop.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And look, I think everyone understands that we've all had a reward system, and I think a reward system in place can help you grow, but
Mhm.
you don't abuse the reward. And in this situation, sometimes reward is food. As a
Yeah.
kid, good job. You got an A. Let's go out to dinner.
Let's
Happy
get ice
birthday.
cream.
Let's get some
Yeah.
cake, ice cream. Yeah. All these things where food was used as a reward system. Um, and not to say that that's a bad thing. I just think that there is a way to change it up in general because if food isn't your fight, then something else may be. And if it is, I'm sure you have tools to help them. How can someone get in contact with you? Like, your socials. Like, let's look at, how can we find you and be able to get more information about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with socials. Right size underscore perspective is on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, I believe now. But if you were to Google me, Sara Wilder, lcsw.com, don't forget it's without an H. All of my socials are linked in the top corner. I have my sleep challenge as a resource in itself can help, and that's a non-negotiable quality sleep, but that's a conversation for another time. But then also if you go to programs in my drop down box, you'll find Fresh Perspective, and you can either text us, email us, and we can get you set up for a consultation, um, and get you access to the program. And it's financially, like fundamentally, I cannot find myself to overcharge people for information. And I feel like the membership fee is very reasonable given the circumstances that we're in 2025. Of course, it is tiered so I can make sure that I can attend to people, and I have coaches that also support me as a clinician to be able to connect with people. And even though it's virtual, there are opportunities hopefully coming soon in 2026 if this workshop when this workshop series takes off, that I can
Come on now.
actually create those live spaces for people around the world, so then that way we're not just staying connected, we're actually being able to connect in person.
And that is awesome. And I want to say, Sarah, thank you one more time for the information that you provided. Look, it's your main man with the game plan, Corey Giovanny, with some core conversations. Hopefully, this information has helped you. There will be links and all that in the description below. Take care and God bless. Peace.